What's everybody? Welcome back to the Gran Torino. Delighted you could join me for this episode of the Gran Torino. Before I get started and before I introduce my next guest, please don't forget press the like button, the subscription button and the little blue bell, and you'll be reminded of future conversations here on the Gran Torino. Today, after yesterday's proceedings up in Galway, I am delighted to introduce to you today the Burke brothers. Burke, Isaac, how are you, sir?
Good, thank you.
Enoch
Burke. Yeah.
How are you, sir? Delighted to meet you.
Thank you.
Just for my audience back home and around the world, please just give us a brief background of you guys, who you are, your family, your beliefs, and then we might lead into how this all started up, and then we will finish off on yesterday's proceedings with Judge Patrice McDonnell. Is that okay, sir?
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I'm Isaac and this is Enoch, and we have a legal case with Burke's and Inuit Galway, and there's four of us, four siblings involved in the case. Me Burke and Kezia Burke, those are two sisters, and we were all students at Galway University back in 2014, and the whole case arises out of, I suppose, it's rooted in our Christian beliefs, and I suppose we're Christians. We take the scriptures as the final authority for matters of faith and practice, and perhaps you'd like to talk a little bit more about the beliefs, Enoch, that were...
Yeah, absolutely. So the beliefs would be central to this case. So it's a religious discrimination case, and that's at the heart of the case. And so it's all about that, really. As Christians, all of us were students. The four of us, Kezia and me, myself, Isaac, and I, we were all students at Inuit Galway. And we naturally, once we got to university, I joined the Christian Union Society back in September 2012, and also the Life Society. Now, the mission of the Life Society is to do with you're against abortion, the sanctity of life, which for us is a Christian issue. It comes even when you go back to the Sixth Commandment, Exodus 20 verse 13, thou shalt not kill, which I think is very well known. And then the Christian Union Society that was more relevant, I suppose, to our beliefs as coming from Scripture. Christian, as distinct, the Scriptures are the final authority for matters of faith and practice. That's where we find what we really believe in, what's important for life.
As opposed to, say, an organised church or looking to an institution.
Yes.
The Scriptures, Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And that's his call to all of us. And it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing when you follow Christ. And his words are revealed in Scripture.
Yes.
And we place a high regard on that. And I was thinking recently of a verse that says, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words will not pass away. So I suppose those are the kind of things, the scriptures that would motivate us.
Absolutely, yeah. And even in the Christian Union Society in Inuit Galway, one of the constitution, I suppose one of the tenets of the constitution was to create an opportunity for people to express and discuss their beliefs. Yeah. That was hugely important to us in the Christian Union. And we had beliefs on a lot of things. I mean, at one stage, we could give different examples. Like Christmas, you have your Christmas carol service with your Christmas message. And then I remember one occasion, actually, the Literary and Debating Society had a debate on embryonic stem cell research. And I was invited. There was a panel of speakers, including doctors from the university and so on. And I was there on the panel as the Christian Union representative, giving the Christian Union view on man as equal and so on. But central to this case were two of our beliefs, and they became very important, and they were our beliefs that same-sex marriage was contrary to Scripture, A, and then B, that abortion was contrary to Scripture. And not sure how familiar with sort of student politics, but the Students' Union, which is part of the university, they ran referendums in March 2014, primarily, and one was about abortion, and the two members, and the other one was about same-sex marriage, and this catapulted, I suppose, the expression of our religious beliefs into the public eye. And it all centered around basically the university. The main one was the university wanted to pass a motion saying that they would support same-sex marriage, that they would promote it, so as to mandate them to promote that.
And similarly for abortion, a similar idea for abortion. So up to that point, we had events, as societies have events, speakers.
As you're entitled to do.
As you're entitled to do. Fully registered societies. But sadly, we were on the committee of both societies for that year. But sadly, we found a pattern emerging on campus where you put up posters advertising your events, and there'd be systematic ripping down of your posters, to the point where it became difficult to operate as societies on campus. Yeah.
Do you feel like you were being shut down and you were being targeted primarily because of your Christian beliefs and whatever the flyers expressed or whatever they displayed?
Yeah.
So not to cast aspersions or accusations anywhere, but the flyers that you had produced and displayed around the campus were then systematically pulled down and torn asunder, effectively against any kind of practical rulings for debate, for conversation, for publicising new ideas or existing ideas.
Exactly. And we had submitted complaint after complaint to the universities, groups and so on. And what would happen is it would just be not taking your complaint seriously.
Yeah.
So I remember one complaint we submitted in November 2013, and we submitted to a lady called Pat Morgan. She was the vice president for the student experience, and you submit it, and then 2 weeks later you get a reply saying, "Oh, you need to fill out the official form." And then 2 weeks later again, you get a reply saying, "We're working on your complaint." So this particular complaint was about just a widespread ripping down of Life Society posters. And on the posters were just statistics of how many abortions would take place, say, in different countries of the world. People are not aware of the scale of that.
Yeah.
But the complaint would just pass from department to department, and then it passed to March was the next thing we heard about it. And we had to fill out another form in March, and then finally in May we got news that the complaint had been dismissed. So
and the complaint that Isaac would have filled out would be properly filled out on the complaints form, and it would say in that you should get a response within 40 days. And this complaint Isaac would have laid out. It could have taken him hours to write it, like very specific as to the number of posters ripped down, where they were ripped down, what was on the posters.
Exact detailing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to steer my to my audience is that the chaps have what's called the burkeconnection.com. So to give you some sort of background, I'll link it in the description box, the guys.
Yeah, Burke Broadcast.
Burke Broadcast, my apologies, .com.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be in the description box, and that'll give you a kind of a background story to come back up to where we are today.
Yeah.
So just to kind of hone it in a little bit more, the college made a complaint against your expenditure of €325. Mm-hmm. Now it's seen reading through your previous articles that other societies had overruns and had incomplete audits, which you displayed on your website. I encourage you to go back to there. Some expenditures exceeding 1,100 unaccounted for in the differences between what was paid for a Ryanair flight as opposed to what was actually given up. So just give us the example between how you were treated for your 325, I suppose. What followed up to the rest of the society?
So after these referendums, we had a number of complaints pending with the university about free speech and about the free exercise of our religious beliefs. Posters ripped down, and also complaints about actually physical harassment of Christians on campus. So we'd have information tables, and they would be surrounded by leftists, and we wouldn't be able to give out leaflets. So at one point, Enoch was surrounded by leftists one evening for about an hour and a half, abused. People trying to kiss you and so on. It's kind of
essentially shutting it down.
Essentially shutting it down. It's a common tactic. I don't know if you're following any of mine when I went to Ruski and stuff like that, just to cover and report on it. But seen as an agitator at the time, shut down, assaulted. Now, nothing to me, but it's intimidating if you're not able to handle that atmosphere, if you're feeling pressured by physical contact. And I can appreciate how intimidating that is. But you stood your ground. You made your complaints.
We made the complaints, but at the same time, like you said, we got complaints in about €325 of the Christian Union money that we had used to pay for flyers. And it was just an absolute frame-up, because without getting into the details, the money was returned. There was no problems with it. We were upfront. We had all the details there.
And societies are entitled to spend up to €650 on printing and publications every year. And this particular amount of money was €325, so it was far less than and it was spent on it was spent on a particular just flyers. And even when the university arose an issue with it, we just gave the money back, which is that it hadn't been approved by our committee, by the Christian Union Committee, this particular incident. So as you approach the end of the year, you're just finalising your accounts like any other society would do.
It's normal procedure. You have autonomy over the money in the account. But and they pursued this complaint vigorously against us.
Yeah.
And but like you said, we became aware afterwards of just colossal irregularities in other societies, to the scale of up to, I think in one society there was up to €8,000 unaccounted for on the records. Yeah.
That's a huge disparity between your expenditure.
Yes, and none of this, no evidence that the money was given back, and no investigation by the same group of the University Society's investigation group, no investigation of these societies. And you're talking about, like you said, flights with Ryanair, where, if I could just explain, what would happen is on the system would someone would from the society would record that they had paid €5,000 for Ryanair flights. But when you look at the receipts would add up to maybe 3,800.
Yeah.
So you'd be looking at a deficit there of about €1,000. But no accountability.
No follow-up.
No follow-up, nothing at all. I mean, extraordinary, to be honest. Extraordinary. And you're talking about with us then, we got the mallet, we got hammered, and
on that point, just sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
This is about flyers, something we have printed. And there is a policy in universities called a post-stream policy.
Yeah.
And it covers flyers and it covers posters. And the sanction for we were exemplary students. I mean, you don't need to be defensive.
No, I can imagine.
On that point.
Yeah.
But the sanction for a first breach of that post-stream policy is a rap on the knuckles. Don't do it again.
You got a lifetime ban.
Yeah, it's called a warning. So instead of getting this warning, which if there was misconduct on our part, we got a lifetime ban. And in order to do the lifetime ban, because we have been talking to journalists, and unilaterally people say, how on earth could the university come up with such a sanction?
Draconian.
Yeah,
draconian,
exactly. And the nature of university business is not draconian. You don't, there's freedom.
That's the place to have all the conversations.
Exactly.
Of course.
But in order to do it, they pulled out a document that had never been used before, a process that had never been used before, called the Society's Complaints Procedure. It's a formal process.
Yeah.
They pulled it out, and on that process there were levels of sanction, and they pulled out the worst sanction for individuals, and they slapped it on us. So, by all accounts, and we have done FOIs in the university, for the last 16 years, we were sanctioned in 2014, and we did an FOI in 2016, and from 2016 back to 2000, there have been no sanctions at all under this procedure, never used before.
Yep.
And we reckon that in the history of the university it had never been handed down before.
Okay, that's a brief summation for my audience and those of you just following along, and those of you who are paying attention. Let's get into the meat and bones of this week, particularly yesterday, or when you first started off. Take us through from when you first entered in, and then when the opening statements were made by the college SC council, and then the judges' quotes, and how we.
Yeah. So before we do that, what happened was we launched an equal status claim. We lodged an equal status claim with the Equality Tribunal, claiming discrimination on the grounds of religion.
Yes.
And what you have to do in that case is to prove that you were treated less favourably, and then on the ground of religion. Then it went to a body called the Workplace Relations Commission in Ireland, just to explain why it's so long. I mean, it's 5 years ago, and it took us 2 years to get a hearing before this body. And at the Workplace Relations Commission, we got 6 hearings were scheduled at the Workplace Relations Commission to deal with this complaint against Enoch Burke. It just gives you an idea of how in depth it is. We're only scratching the surface in terms of the evidence and so on that has to be gone through. But 6 hearings,
and the hearings are in the WRC, it's with an adjudication officer.
Yeah.
So all WRC cases, like under the Equal Status Act, it could be about discrimination on the grounds of religion, it could be discrimination on the grounds of race or age or something like that.
Yeah.
There's an adjudication officer that hears these cases, and in our case it was adjudication officer Louise Boyle. So she was dealing with our case. And it was an absolute miscarriage of justice. From the very first day, she'd be making comments like, "Oh, I'm scared of all the boxes," she said at one stage.
Mm-hmm. So, ridiculous thing to say.
And these adjudication officers are filling their pockets now.
The
They're getting well paid by the state to get
among other people that are getting well paid by the state. More to follow.
Yeah. And I'm scared by all the boxes. At one point she said, can we get some colour in the submissions? Not black and white. Displaying extraordinary deference to Inuit Galway, their team of barishters and solicitors, and to the point of almost asking them for advice.
Yeah, ridiculous.
How do you think we feel?
Yeah.
And at one point, the adjudication officer offered to strike evidence off the record for Inuit Galway. And we to the point where we had to submit a lodge a complaint with the Oireachtas Committee for Justice and Equality about this whole procedure.
Elevating it to the next level because we're not getting any redress or recourse.
No.
Even just about the procedure.
Yeah.
The procedure was so just horrifying.
Elongated and made difficult. It was, I think, just because that's me, to see out your term in college and possibly get past the whole thing.
Exactly. It's about denying justice by
delaying justice.
Yeah. And just to cut a long story short, at that level, at the Workplace Relations Commission, our claims were dismissed largely on technicalities. So in law, if you want to lodge a claim, you've got to do it within a specific number of days after the event happens.
Yeah.
They're called time limits and notification requirements. So she used those to effectively walk away from the case.
Right.
And then we appealed it to the circuit court.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's bringing us to where we are.
It's bringing us
from yesterday.
Yeah, we're back in.
And can I just say, from my own understanding, is this a precedent? Would this set a precedent, this ruling? Should you continue your fight?
It would.
Will it have a bearing on the freedom of expression, freedom of
absolutely?
And that's one of our huge concerns. That's perhaps one of the big explanations as to why it's so hard to get justice on this issue. Because even when you look back through all of the WRC cases, a religious discrimination case is extremely rare. So were the adjudication officer or the judge to rule and say that Inuit Galway had absolutely discriminated against us on the grounds of religion, it would set a huge precedent, and it would be groundbreaking. And the sad reality is, it would simply be giving us a right that's already there in enshrined law.
Yeah, it's just effectively ensuring the correct usage of the Constitution for freedom of expression.
Yeah.
But the judge's comments yesterday caused a bit of a kerfuffle. Am I right?
Yeah. So when we went into the proceedings, now what had happened was the proceedings, they centre around this ban, a lifetime ban from student societies, slapped on the four of us. And we got word, it's extraordinary, we got word a few days ago, before the court hearing, that the ban had been lifted.
I remember.
Yeah. And this is, you're talking about 2014, now we're talking about May, June 2019, 4.5 years later, on the eve of a circuit court hearing.
Yep.
And we get a letter from Inuit Galway and their solicitors saying we're going to lift the ban. And you can read into that what that means yourself, yeah? I mean, extraordinary. When you get a letter like that. Now, key point, but without acknowledging any discrimination or victimization. So they're going to lift the ban, but without acknowledging any.
As if it never happened. As if you didn't make a complaint or they didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly.
With no clarification.
Exactly. That's just it.
No clarification.
And with this offer, or with this lifting of the ban, an offer to, if both sides walk away from the case, we'll forget about the costs.
If we would drop our case, that they would make no order as to costs against us.
Yeah.
And obviously, and I can tell by your determined nature, you wouldn't have not have gone through this whole process just to walk away and go, hey, let's call it quits. You're determined to bring it forward.
We're determined to bring it forward. So we wrote back to them and rejected the offer. So on the morning of the court, we go into the courtroom and I'm going to cut to the chase here, because we could talk about what happened in the opening remarks. A lot of things.
I
want to cut to the chase. Immediately in the opening remarks, the counsel for Inuit Galway stood up and addressed the court and told the judge that the ban had been lifted. And at that point, the judge questioned whether the proceedings were necessary at all. And the words she uses, she began to wonder whether the lifetime ban, quote, would render the whole thing moot, unquote. And I'd just like to read out what moot means, even for your audience.
Go ahead.
So moot means, in law, it suggests that a controversy no longer exists and that a court cannot grant any effectual relief or render an opinion affecting the matter.
And just to say while you're saying that, this is a judge in the circuit court, and in this case it was Judge Patria McDonnell. that was hearing this case.
Presiding in Galway Circuit
Yes.
Court. Moot means there is nothing more to be said, nothing more for a judge to do. So we are brought to a place on Tuesday morning this week in the court after 5 years of this ban hanging on our heads, for us to have to prove somehow to the court that our case is not moot. To prove that our case is not a waste of the court's time. And we were just shocked. We were shocked, we were gutted, and we rose and we objected to the judge's comment immediately.
You recognised straight away the significance of what she had spoken.
Of course,
Because many people are, and can I ask, are you representing yourselves, or do you have counsel as well?
We are representing ourselves, and we're lay litigants. We're representing ourselves.
It was a very astute to pick up on that sentence and to pick it up. And what proceeded then?
So what happened was then we raised a serious objection with her, and the court took a recess for 5 minutes. We wanted to consider our options. We did. We came back. We asked the judge to retract the comment and apologise for it. And she refused to do both of those things. And then we were forced to ask her then to recuse herself, because her comments suggested that she had prejudged.
She showed a bias.
Showing our partiality.
Impartiality, our apologies.
And just to say at this point, we went through the WRC and we had an extremely difficult time. And you expend an awful lot of time in something that drags on from October 2016 to May 2017.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then when you get to the circuit court, before Judge Patricia MacDonald, who, you think you're in a circuit court now, might be a little bit better. You expect maybe a little bit more. To be right at the outset, to get a comment like this in her opening remarks from a judge is just gutting. And we should say as well that even when you arrive in court and right from the outset of the proceedings, there's an antagonism from the judge. There's an antagonism from the judge right from the outset.
How would you say that manifests itself? And we won't drift away from it too long, but was it a flippant remark? Do you think she said it flippantly without really considering what she was expressing? I mean, a judge should have full control over anything that they said. They should be very cognizant of what they're uttering.
Yeah, well, it's to get back to the comment that it was moot. Yeah, a suggestion that our case is moot, and that is a serious thing for a judge to do. To suggest that the case is unnecessary, and this is just on one side, it's plainly wrong in law for her to suggest that, and then it's deeply offensive to us. Because the whole purpose of going to court is that the Equal Status Acts are there to provide redress.
Yeah.
They're there to provide relief for people who've been treated wrongfully. And not only that on the one side, but also to punish the wrongdoer. To fix, I suppose, problems in society.
Yeah.
Yeah. To punish wrongdoing.
We have the rule of law to go there to seek adjudication on a grievance that we have, and we look for the courts to resolve.
Yes,
absolutely.
But essentially what was being suggested was that just because the ban was lifted, the 5 years of exile for us, the effects of that, the effects on our professional lives, this is a sanction of extremely important, an extremely, I suppose, difficult sanction even to bear.
Yeah.
Effects on our personal lives, effects on our health, expending a lot of the last 5 years in legal proceedings. All of that then
it's of no consequence.
It's of no consequence.
There's no value on it.
Exactly. Just wash it away. Nothing here.
Yeah.
What the suggestion was that because the ban was lifted, that somehow all of that didn't matter anymore.
No significance.
So take us up to the judge came back, made 3 appearances, but no notification was giving, no clarification was giving on what you were saying, and she effectively left the courtroom without coming to any sort of conclusion.
So she rose, and there was an adjournment then until 2 p.m.
2 p.m. Yeah.
After lunch, we go back. We say, Judge, will you apologise for the comment? Will you retract it? No, there's no apology, no retracting. And then we ask her to recuse herself. There's none of that. And there's chaos in the court.
Yeah, just at 2 p.m. the judge came back, and rather than retract her comment and apologise. She very clearly said no intention of doing that.
Yeah.
And even when she came back at 2 p.m., it's like she had rather entrenched herself in her position.
Doubling down?
Doubling down, absolutely. And saying that, she said, even if it is moot,
it doesn't mean we can't go ahead and hear the case.
Yeah.
As if we would
Let's just go through the process, but we all know what the conclusion is going to be.
As if we would go ahead with a procedure, knowing that it had been prejudged.
Yeah.
Adjournment again until 4 p.m. And the judge has spent at this point all day refusing to recuse herself.
Yeah.
And at 4 p.m. it was extraordinary because the judge came in, and wasn't at 4 p.m. The judge came in, and the same sort of chaos reigned. And then the judge extraordinarily sort of walked down to the courtroom, and then sort of came right back in again. Mm-hmm. Really extraordinary scenes. The judge kind of going out of the courtroom and then coming back in again in a hurry. Flustered, absolutely.
Very flustered.
Very, very, very
flustered. And at that point, issuing an order that the proceedings would be stayed, that a stay would be put on the proceedings until such time as the outcome of our recusal application will become clear.
She wanted to press the pause button. Then she went and sought counsel.
Exactly. But no indication, and we've been waiting for 5 years for justice, no indication as to how long she's going to take or when will that outcome be handed down.
I'm just going to have a little slight at the legal profession, because I myself tried to go through a process for defamation and slander and all that kind of thing. All avenues effectively closed without an opening gambit of at least a cash flow or of at least a mark, shall we say, was a word we'd use. But our whole legal profession seems to be dedicated to other government branches and seems to be well funded and well catered for, and rulings and all that can be given. But here we have ordinary citizens with a religious conviction in one of our prestigious campuses, and I deal a lot here in Trinity as well. The Libertarian Society have effectively gone through the same sort of barriers, because when they go to advertise, when they go to seek approval from the college to become their form of society, they get the e-loan processes because they come from a different, or they bring libertarianism ideas essentially that don't seem to conform with the campus's ideology and what they want to steer towards. Do you find that yourself with your religious beliefs? Just your basic society, life society, pro-life and Christian values.
Well, absolutely, And where we found even at the university was that the body that we had most dealings with were the USCGs. They were the ones that initiated the disciplinary process against us. In a similar situation so we would have comparators with our case. So a comparator is, for example, other students who did not have your religious belief, who were treated in a completely different way.
I can imagine,
So, and the comparator in our case would have been, for example, we had one comparator where on campus there was an event was organised related to the BDS referendum, which was the boycott, divestment and sanctions of the State of Israel. And it wasn't organised by us, it was organised by another body, and it was an event on campus, but they brought in a speaker who was against the boycott of Israel. So he was presenting his case for the... presenting his case for a no vote in that particular referendum. And there were a group of students from the Palestinian Solidarity Society, so from a society just like we were, in the room, and they completely disrupted the meeting and harassed the speaker and cursed him profusely.
I remember, and I'm not going to name the particular protagonist, but they recently ran for the council elections too as well, and I've been a particular bugbear on that campus as well for harassing other speakers from other viewpoints and effectively shutting down free speech.
This tactic, yes, absolutely, yes.
And the point is, but no investigation, and there were a couple of people in the video harassing the speaker, and the USCG did not investigate the situation. But they investigated us. But I'd like to go back to the comment, because in this week's news, the judge's comment that it was moot, and the suggestion that our court case was moot, and it's extraordinarily serious. So we, that evening, after 4 p.m, she rose, she stayed the proceedings, and she left the room. But we remained in the room because we wanted clarity on her order, and we wanted to know confirmation that a new judge would be appointed, so that we could have access to justice, as is our right. But unfortunately, that did not come, and we had to remain in the courtroom. And we remained there, and we said we're here because we want clarity. We want clarity on the judge's order, and we want confirmation that a new judge will be appointed.
I see the Galway Post put up an article and gave a report on yesterday's proceedings, and I'll link that article in the description box to bring us up to date.
Yes, this was the Galway Daily. They ran a story on us, and essentially what happened was we stayed in the court because the judge had left it without any clarity as to the outcome of our application for recusal, that she recused herself. So we stayed in the court, and extraordinarily, she never came back into the courtroom. And we stayed there in protest, and eventually we were pushed out of the court, out the back door of the court, by the Gardaí.
Well, Garda Síochána, that'll be the police force here in Ireland.
Yeah. And
but the strange thing was there were no charges. We weren't arrested, and we were just pushed out. The court was locked, and you have to realise at this point there's media there, RTE at the court. There's cameras
at the front door.
There's cameras around the court, and you just have to add all those things together and see that the judge had done something wrong. And that was the key thing. And it all ties together. They didn't want to make any scene out of it. And in fact, one of the Gardaí said, "You won't be getting any publicity out of this." Not that we're looking.
Not that you're looking for publicity.
No, we're just looking for due process. We're looking for the courts to do their job. But it was a very strange situation. And our cases were listed for Tuesday this week. They were listed for Wednesday, and they were listed for Thursday. It's very difficult to get a block of dates like that in the circuit court. And we're sorely aggrieved that we were not afforded due process. We're sorely aggrieved that before our cases even opened, the cases have not opened because of a comment made by the judge, Judge Petrie and MacDonald. And we attended the court on Wednesday, just out of principle. We were there because we've taken days off work. We have people coming from all different places, from Dublin down to Galway. We have people coming from London.
Giving up their time to assist in your case.
Giving up their time. We had a witness from London. And we attended on Wednesday, and we attended on Thursday as well. And it was extraordinary what happened on Thursday morning.
Unprecedented.
So on Wednesday, the courtroom door was locked, and I suppose there was no sign of the judge. And essentially, this is about being locked out of the court, being locked out of the court system. Being locked out by.
And on Thursday morning, we went up to the court. We just attended there because our cases were listed for the 3 days. And we learned on Thursday morning that our cases had been taken off the circuit court list, and that new cases had been put on the list. We just learned moments while we were sitting in the court.
We're standing out the door.
So this is effectively where you are now today. There's no.
But when we went, so on Thursday morning we went in. We sat down in the room. There were teams of barristers and solicitors there, and we waited for the judge to appear. Because we're still waiting the outcome of the recusal application. Is she going to recuse herself? Waiting in the room for at least half an hour. This is other people as well waiting in the room. The judge doesn't appear. And people need to know what's happening in these courts. No appearance of the judge. Then at 11 o'clock she appears. We all rise. She comes in, she sits down, and I speak and I remind her of what happened on Tuesday. And I'm looking for an outcome for the recusal application. Is she going to recuse herself? Is she going to allow us to have a fair and impartial hearing? And first of all, she says that she'll have us removed from the room. But then she turns and literally just flees out of the courtroom. It's extraordinary.
Afraid of her own words?
Afraid of her own words. You've just put your finger on it. Because she has done wrong. Fled out of the courtroom. And we're there waiting in the courtroom then for the next 2 hours. And it's an empty courtroom.
Where do we stand now? I mean, you've been there this morning, still no clarification, so we're effectively you're on hold for the Monday to
limbo.
You're in limbo effectively now. So hence why we're able to conduct this interview and stuff like that, because the case is still ongoing, or the case hasn't even got started.
That's the crux of the matter, really. It never even got to a hearing.
And the reason for this is because, again, we go back to the comments made by the Judge Petrie and MacDonald, at the opening of the proceedings on Tuesday morning. And we are in limbo. We're waiting for clarification on the order of the judge, and we're waiting for confirmation that a new judge will be appointed. But we are waiting, like we said. But we do have, you mentioned that website, burkebroadcast.com, and we will be posting updates on Burke Broadcast, because we will be considering our options after this.
Well, gentlemen, I think just on that note there, I think we'll wrap it up there just for now, and come to forwarding, should anything come forward, I'll invite you back on again if you can. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, because I know you probably had a lot of other, press and journalists wanting to get that chance to interview with you. But again, the Gran Torino, thank you very much. Please keep us informed and come back and let us know how things get covered. We'll be following it, as I'm sure all my listeners and listeners and viewers from all around the world will be paying close attention, because I think you have, just even with the lack of recusal or the lack of follow-up, I think you've stumbled onto something very prescient, very prescient in constitutional matters that are really pertinent to what's going on here in Ireland at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Gran Torino. And as I say, Isaac and Enoch will join us again should we get further clarification on the statement from Judge Patrice MacDonald. Am I correct? Patria MacDonald. And I'll inform you, and I encourage you to go to the burkebroadcast.com and keep up with the Burke family and their pursuit of justice for this very protracted situation that seems to have very prescient matters at hand. If you enjoyed that, please don't forget, press the like button, press the subscription button, and the little blue bell, and you'll be reminded of future conversations here in the Gran Torino.